Shouldn't be a problem. It's annoying because it says it's downloaded, but it's converting, whatever that means. But anyways, I'm trying. Yeah, I had a hell of a time with all the YouTube downloads. So I played around with some few different programs and found one that worked. Obviously, because I got the void out, and so I'm working on downloading the biography again, and in a different format, and seeing if that'll open in one of these programs, one of the 2 video editing programs that I've downloaded.
Right on. It's a way bigger pain in the ass. Although I guess once you figure it out, it'll be easier to do in the future.
Yeah, it's well, yeah, sometimes you have things that work and then they stop working. It's really weird. I don't know exactly why, but you're working with one program trying to go on YouTube and take a video, and it's not really made to be that easy. So, because they don't want you to download and they don't particularly want you to be downloading the files. So I don't know what the deal is, but anyways, hopefully that works. And I'll just play around with the options until I get a copy that'll open in the video editing software, and then I'll go ahead and do that.
Right on. What's up, EJ?
Hey, folks. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Doing great.
I'm just getting over a cold.
Yeah, happy Saturday.
Yeah, we got a rainy Saturday here. It's been raining.
Very
all day.
rainy. Same.
Well, at least you guys didn't get like 18 inches of snow in 2 days like we did last couple of days. The storm finally cleared Thursday around 10 a.m. or noon, and it's been bright blue outside and sunny all day.
Nice. It was like almost 80 here the other day.
Ew.
Oh, it was higher. It was higher than that here.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'd move. I couldn't do that.
It was actually, there's something about being sick. I'd rather be in the cold when I'm sick than in the heat.
Because then you can bundle up and drink tea and.
Yeah. Well, I was outside working in it, and there's something about it being warm outside with a head cold that really sucks.
Dude, it saps your energy more that way.
It does. Yeah. I just felt awful all day, but I don't know. I've had it for like 2-3 days now. So right now I am drinking water kefir with ginseng and lion's mane and cordyceps mushroom.
Wow.
We're going hard in the mushrooms over here.
I love mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an iced half calf. I grounded the beans this morning, and I got some heavy whipping cream in there.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, I got a nice coffee.
Cut down on
right
caffeine.
out the carton.
Yeah, that's why I got half calf, but now I just drink twice as much.
Right. Yeah, no, that wouldn't work for me. I would just drink more, so that's kind of why we're going into the mushrooms a little bit, because there's some that can help with your energy and, brain function and stuff. So we're going into that. Resonance, I'm staring at it right now. She made what's called a still air box.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically like a sterile box, like you would see on like in a medical facility or a lab where they got the gloves that go into the glass box to work on stuff.
Right.
Same idea.
But you're using it to grow mushrooms, and the air still gets in there without problems.
Without contamination. Right.
Nice.
Yeah. So she's trying her hand at that, and we're going to grow a bunch of different kinds of mushrooms, and we're kind of moving into like mushrooms as medicine kind of a situation, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't drink coffee because of the caffeine. I just like the fucking taste of coffee. I enjoy it. And
I also love the taste of coffee.
Like if I find a good brand that's been decaffeinated, like Swiss water version or whatever, I'll drink it because I just like the taste of it. And sometimes I'm not even a snob about it. I'll drink whatever is available. But lately I've just gotten into like just buying it and grinding it myself and drinking it fresh. And Yeah, I like the taste of it. So like me personally, I bounce out of bed, so I don't rely on coffee until mid morning anyway.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with that.
No, I listen.
I can't do that.
I'm not perfect. I still have a lot of problems, medical problems and stuff. I'm trying to heal with my lifestyle choices, but I literally I literally have energy and I need to wear it off in the morning. And until I do that, it's pointless to drink coffee because then I'm just adding fuel to the fire.
Oh, that's crazy. So I've always been a morning person in the sense that I always get up early, but
Oh.
I need like a good solid half hour to an hour before I'm fully awake every morning. So I'll wake up and I'll just sit and like I'm groggy. I'm not even like fully functional yet. Don't talk to me, and I'll just sit there and like have my coffee and screw around and like wake up for like at least a half an hour. I can't get up and go. I've never been able to do that.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't always.
probably caffeine addiction.
I wasn't always like this. Like when I worked for, the man for 15 to 20 years in my life, the first 15, 20 years of my adult life, I would have to be at work usually by 8:30 or 9, the 9 to 5 thing. And so that meant in the wintertime, it would be dark when I got up and I hated it. I hated it because as humans, we're supposed to be like active in the daytime and like sleeping in the nighttime. And so what I do is I've been following this like sort of just circadian rhythm more and more as I become more of a free person. It's been a little bit easier when when I work for myself and I don't, I know that when you're in the business you're in that you have certain hours you have to beat the clock and get on the road and stuff like that. And I guess I just made it so like I work around the sun now. And so if it means that because of daylight savings and other crap, I just, I'm not awake until the sun is up. And as soon as it is, I go outside for at least 5 to 10 minutes every morning. And that like resets that anchors your bedtime for you. I don't know how to explain it, but it does. And then if you do it the first 20 to 30 minutes once you're out of bed, it literally sets the clock for you so that like whatever time you're ready to go to sleep, it's been determined, and then you'll get 8 hours that way easily if you can.
Yeah.
So have you ever read? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It's not important. That's really awesome. Though. You're really fortunate. You'll be able to do that. Obviously,
that's my dream for all of humanity. Is that
right?
Everyone can sleep to when they healthily wake out of bed, get up, be productive when they want to, doing something that they enjoy doing. And I think that's possible. I really do, to like a certain degree anyway. There's this book called The Tyranny of the Clock.
Awesome.
And yeah, no, you would dig that book. And Ray and I were talking, Ray from the Let's Make Some Shit podcast, our friend. Her and I were talking about it. And basically the idea of a clock dictating like when you wake up, what you do when you eat is really new in terms of like human beings on this planet.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like from like the 1800s. Like before that, people didn't live their lives by the clock. They lived their lives by their own body and nature and the sunshine and whatever else. And
the sunshine, it's practical.
Yeah. And they ate when they were hungry, not at a specific time for a specific amount of time,
Yeah,
eat
yeah.
when you're hungry.
We didn't even have 3 meals a day back in the day. Like you might not even get more than one a day. You might have a midday meal and that was the end of it.
Right. Yep. Or a snack when you're, when you finally got out to the fields or something in your pack. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of my if I had wanted one thing for humanity, I would want like all people to make a productive living doing things that they actually enjoy doing, and also that their schedules were not dictated by like outside factors, but like their own individual needs and wants of their own body and etc.
Well, here's how I see it. That there's a lot of tremendous advantages in lifestyle improvements and just vast improvements in like productivity, obviously, and then the standards of living with civilization and industry. But I mean, realistically, we are at this point so tremendously productive overall that we can ideally take the level of like productivity and technology that we have and kind of, I mean, the whole idea is to take that and use that to live more comfortable lives and lives that are more healthy and like, yeah, like you said, basically in tune with our bodies and a circadian rhythm and stuff like that, because we've kind of surpassed that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that early or first industrial stage where maybe on some level, in the sense that kind of looking at things teleologically, but just kind of looking at the past as the past, not justifying anything, but there is some level of justifying it in the sense of taking early industrialization and how regimented and harsh it might have been, and then having gotten to this point, we have so much abundance and so much uh, productivity overall as a society, um, and not trying to kind of mess with the basic economics of it, but just saying, hey, we have the ability to kind of live more comfortable and more in tune lives with our bodies and still be relatively comfortable.
100%. And then, so you made a point earlier about how it was like, okay, this is the way we always were, right? Until like industrialization, civilization, technology progressing. People were like so jazzed about having electricity that'd be like, fuck this shit. I'll be up all night now. I got lights. I can do my studying, or I can do my sewing, or watch the kids, or, whatever. And it's like, okay, but they just sacrificed, like, they don't even know what they sacrificed. You know what I mean? It's like, you could do a trade-off, but then it's like, okay, now you're going to be tired in the morning because you went to bed super late. So
yeah, look at how north you live. That's the only thing, is a lot of this stuff I think comes from all these cities and all this stuff developing in such northerly latitudes, where the days are so much shorter in the wintertime and so much longer, and of course it's like super cold. So before central heating and all this stuff, you really, and when things were mostly agricultural, there's really not much to do in the wintertime period. It's really nothing to do. There's no really point in being up in the first place, except for the period of time the sun's up. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to be cold, you're going to be miserable, you're going to be huddled up or bundled up or whatever. But then you're able to eat once you get rudimentary technology and like modern technology and like industrial technology and stuff. Yeah, you're able to do a lot more. You're able to do a lot more with your day when it's not your entire day isn't like 8 hours of sunlight or like 7 hours of sunlight. And I think that has a lot to do with this. So much of industry came in these northerly cold, places with these long summer days.
We just want to say shitholes.
No, well, not at all. I mean, that's where the nice cities and nice countries for a long time. I mean, that's where things really popped off. But I don't know. Anyways, I would never live somewhere that north. I can't deal with the cold like that, and I don't know how.
Well, it's different when your blood is from here. I come from Nordic people. Everybody in my lineage comes from Nordic countries. We're used to northerly temperatures and climates, and also don't forget we get 6 months of fucking hot too. So we get both. We get a day of each of spring and fall, and then we get winter and summer. So I think the other thing too, there's a lot to people that come from Nordic lineage. If you look at going to Denmark, or if you go to Scandinavia, these people love winter to the point where they don't mind it and they're happy all the time. And so it's different for different people. Like you guys said, being down south,
they do.
It would be harder, to live up north for people who are used to being in the southern climates, for sure. I mean, we all have different ethnic heritage that allows us to tolerate different things. And of course, you can also acclimate yourself by force. But so like there's literally people who are happy with winter. Like We have a winter carnival. It goes on for 2 weeks here in the snow, and they build ice castles, and they have ice skating, and they have contests and all this crap, and it's all outside. There's nothing indoors.
Okay. Two things about that though. First of all, yeah. So you go down south in the southern United States or anywhere in much of the world. There's a lot of places that are cool. They get really hot, but they have that dry heat. But a lot of places are just absolutely swampy and muggy, and that's how the American South. That's how it is here. It gets cold here, but it certainly gets when it gets hot. It's kind of a. I live in kind of a wetland, swampy area, naturally, and so you get. I know you get a lot of like mud and mosquitoes up there as well in the summertime, but down here it gets very swampy, very, very, very muggy and humid. So
Yeah, we have the
before
greenhouse effect in Minnesota because it's very green here. We have lots of woods, we have lots of urban, but we have lots of urban mixed with woods and lakes. And so
Mhm.
even if I'm in the city, I'm literally a walk away from a lake and a woods.
Yeah, all the lakes, yeah. And before AC, conversely, like before AC, air conditioning and stuff like that, it was really hard to get anything done in the summertime in a lot of the hot parts of the world. And you're continuing to see like AC is now reaching, where like a lot of Europe doesn't have AC. Well, and they can kind of survive, but now you're getting AC hitting a lot of like the subtropical and tropical, and that's going to help them out. But yeah, a lot of the South, it was probably, I mean, I'm sure it was really tough to do stuff a lot of the year. And again, it's not that dry heat, it's that muggy heat, which really
Yeah.
I know all about. And then uh, I guess that was the converse part to the northerly latitudes. I used to work overnights. I've talked about that before, and that was always pretty rough. There's always different theories about how much that was affecting my health and whatnot and so on. But like at the same time, I moved on from that, started doing other things, and there's other trade offs, and there's pluses and minuses to everything. But I'll never go back to that. I think that maybe it's something you can kind of um I don't even know, cope with, not even tolerate, cope with when you're young. Like you can cope with a lot of things as
Yeah,
far as
we're more
hectic,
resilient when we're younger.
yeah, hectic, crazy schedules, and that's one of them. Like, yeah, work your third shift, but I wouldn't want to go on into my later years, working a third shift kind of job and working truly by the clock when you're working an opposite schedule from everyone else.
Yeah, it was a bakery, right?
No, not me. Hotels.
I don't know why I got you mixed up with the baker. There's another guy I talked to regularly that did overnights, and it was a bakery.
Yeah, that's an industry that does that. Little bit different schedule,
Yeah,
but
my dad was a
sometimes they
baker.
probably do that.
My dad was a baker, and I'm surprised he lived as long as he did because that guy had to get up at like 3:30 in the morning and be at work by like
Yes,
5.
one of those kind of schedules. See,
Yeah.
I'd be going in at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So I'd be hitting midnight at work.
Yeah.
I can't do that, man. I did that for a very, very short time after I sold my last business, and I have my truck driving license, so I went and drove a truck for a little while, and I had to go in at like 11 p.m. to go pick up the rig, go get to my first load by whatever time, and that meant I had to go to bed at like 3 in the afternoon, and that happened 0 times. I
Yikes!
never
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I never could. I'd end up finally going to sleep at like 7:38 or something, and I'd have to get up at like 10, 10:30 the latest. And that meant I got like 3 hours of sleep every night, and then went and drove for like 10, 11 hours. It
yeah.
fucking sucked. I
See,
only did that for like 2, 3 months, but I never got used to it at all.
Yeah, it's a
when you work
struggle.
overnights,
It's a struggle when
you
you
get
have other people that are active around you during the day and you want to do stuff with them and you can't.
well. There's
Yeah.
also society. Like you want to get sometimes you got to get stuff done, and it's got to be done. You got to figure out: do I want to do my mornings and then go sleep in the afternoon? Do I want to sleep in the mornings and wake up and do stuff in the afternoons? And then some things aren't open
Right.
in the evening, and some things are open in the evening, and
Yeah.
you don't want to get off your schedule, but it's sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah, for sure. Like having to do status crap, like go to the bank or the post office. You got to do that before 5 o'clock in the evening.
Hey, so I got a couple of announcements for patrons. I'll give you guys a little. I forgot about this at the beginning, but so I just nailed down. I scheduled Sheldon Richmond to come on the podcast, so I'm pretty excited about that. I've been a fan of his work for a while. He's coming on sometime at the end of the March, I think.
I'm excited about that.
So that'll be awesome. And then we are starting a Women of Anarchism series here pretty soon. So BJ, you're more than welcome to come on for that. But we're gonna interview a bunch of women anarchists and just kind of hear their backstory and how they came to anarchism, and just an interview like that. And so that's going to be coming here soon. Did you just assume my gender? Yes. Yeah, I did. And then yes. Oh, and then speaking of mushrooms, the Let's Make Some Shit podcast, they just had a whole episode on growing mushrooms with some dude who really knows his shit.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, go check that out. I already listened to it. I'm privy to episodes before they get released, but it's a fucking awesome episode. I really like that one a lot. That dude knows his shit. So yeah, if you're interested in growing mushrooms, go check that out. And then there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember now.
It's our fault because we went off on a tangent. Like Penguin and I love to do that.
No, there is no tangents on the Q&A. We just talk about it's freewheeling. So no, I meant to mention it at the beginning, but then I forgot. So I'm getting what Biden's got, so I gotta like start doing something about my. I
All right,
know.
Grandpa, settle down. He'll have your
Yeah.
pudding in a minute, and then you can go nap time.
Yeah, seriously. So I'm trying to. I just asked residents to make me something with mushrooms, like a replacement for energy drinks, basically, but something that'll give me energy, but also like help improve my cognitive function. And I'm gonna start microdosing psilocybin again here soon because that um, supposedly microdosing, but not macrodosing, uh, has a cognitive benefit. It helps, I don't know, strengthen neural pathways or stuff. And there's been studies about. There's been studies, I think, either in Japan or Europe. I can't remember. But microdosing psilocybin helps relieve symptoms of Alzheimer's. So I'm going to start doing that because I'm getting a bit of that. And I just made a post.
Sorry, what is microdosing? What again?
Psilocybin mushrooms.
Oh,
Magic mushrooms.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, like a dose that you would like trip from doesn't have that same effect, but a microdose does. And some people have made the argument it's because you're like flooding it with a full dose, like a macro dose. You're flooding your brain's receptors
Right.
all at once, whereas microdosing, you're doing a little bit over, a long time, and it takes weeks to actually like regenerate neural pathways.
Right. You're just taking like milligrams or micrograms versus grams of it.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to start doing that again. Yeah, like I said, we're going hard into all kinds of mushrooms here, but
yeah, the cool thing about mushrooms is like if you have access to spores without cost, that's free food.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently there's a way to do it to get the spores from mushrooms that you buy at the grocery store, which I did not know. Yeah, I'm not sure how. I have to look into that, but that's what the fellow was talking about on the Let's Make Some Shit podcast. Is you can just take mushrooms that you get at the store, and you can harvest spores from them or make clones from the mushrooms at the store.
Okay,
Which,
I can't wait for that episode because I know somebody in our Freedom Cell group who has done mushrooms on a log, and I missed the Skillshare he did for that, but I'm interested.
yeah, I've seen that before too, where you inoculate the logs. You can buy those logs too, already inoculated. But we prefer to do things ourselves around here. So yeah, no, we're going hard into that this year. Like we need more shit to do. But but yeah, no, I got to do something. My brain is getting shot. It already is pretty shot, and I'm only 40. No, I'm 39. So like, it's not getting better unless I take steps to circumvent what's happening.
You didn't do a lot of head banging in your younger years, did you?
A lot of headbang, a lot of fist fights, a lot of drugs, and a lot of loud music. A lot of pot. None of which is good for your brain.
Why would I have expected nothing less from you?
I thought my memory's always been shot, and I thought it would get better when I quit smoking pot, and it definitely didn't. It never got any better. So I have to do some kind of nootropic or something. Start slow my mental decline.
Yeah. Well, I think you can help improve it too with a little bit of exercises, plus whatever you're thinking about doing.
Yeah, that's kind of why I play chess. I play chess quite a bit. It helps try to, keep my mind. That doesn't help memory though, but it definitely improves like cognitive function in other ways. But I don't know how I'd go about like making my memory better than it is. I bet you there's probably a way, but I used to play Sudoku too for the same reason. I did not enjoy playing Sudoku at all, but I just did it.
Yeah, I was going to say some people swear by crossword puzzles, but I suppose that's kind of the same as like Sudoku.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, I guess so. If you really try to finish them, but I think it works different parts of your brains too. I mean, I guess doing that math, I guess doing different kinds of puzzles and stuff. Crosswords are pretty good, but you gotta kind of know a lot of stuff, which that's kind of good. You have to know a lot of like Jeopardy type trivia, so I think it helps as you get older. That's probably why old people like crosswords so much, is because you accumulate so much trivial knowledge over time. So maybe I should start hitting up the New York Times crossword or something that I've never been able to get before, because I always liked crosswords, even as a kid.
What's weird is like my grandmother, literally every day that she was alive and had a newspaper, she finished it every morning before she had her coffee. And she only lived to be like 70 something because she had a bunch of cancer and shit. But yeah, I mean, I was impressed because like you said, you have to have a wide array of knowledge. It's not just like pop culture. It's not just sports. It's not history. It's like a mix of all that shit. And, I was always impressed by her ability to do that.
Yeah, and the old folks love their Jeopardy too. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I used to watch Jeopardy as well.
God,
But
I love Jeopardy.
Jeopardy was great. Yeah, I used to watch that quite a bit. I was pretty good.
I work during the day, so I don't watch it that much.
Yeah, no, I don't. I haven't watched it in years, but there was a time when I went through a phase where I watched a lot of Jeopardy, and I think I could have held my own on that show. Actually, I was always answering the question before.
Ken Jennings, Eat Your Heart Out.
I don't know who that is.
He's like one of the most famous winners. He had a streak.
Okay.
I don't know how many months. He had a streak for months. Like you couldn't pick him off the show if you paid him. He was winner, 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 winner.
I will fight Ken Jennings.
I think he's probably the most famous Jeopardy winner, at least in our generation.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He may have even guest hosted at one point. Like he was that badass.
He probably has, yeah. Yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah, I'm sure he's like the number one ever.
Hey, so current thing, like what do you guys think about all this like UFO stuff?
I haven't been paying attention to the UFO stuff as much as the Ohio stuff because the neighborhood I live in is surrounded on all three sides by a railroad. It's a shape of an upside down triangle, kind of tilted a little. And it's all I can think about right now.
So I haven't thought about that very much as far as my life is concerned. I mean, I've thought about it in other sense. Actually, I haven't really done an in-depth deep dive, and I tend to not like do a deep dive on most things because the information will usually come through me through like podcasts and stuff, or Twitter discourse or whatever. But luckily enough, when people will bring that up and we're like, it was the Republicans and it was the so and so, it was the corporations and everything. I've got I have downloaded at least, and I think I've started one. The Chapo episode just about the train thing for like a left wing perspective, and Radio Rothbard for like a right libertarian kind of perspective. So hopefully, and they're usually pretty heavy with the facts. I mean, you might have your complaints about their bents, but they're going to usually say the facts and have people on to really, actually give real insight and expertise that you probably aren't going to get from either Twitter or just like the mainstream news, watching individual news reports, individual stories, or even like individual posts on different blogs or whatever you like. So I'm really interested in listening to, like, I don't know, almost 2 hours of recorded material just on this train thing, just to find out what happens, just when people start throwing around accusations or this and that, and be like, well, I've heard this, and I've also heard, that, of course.
I'm pretty fucking concerned. I'm not gonna lie, because that I am not far from Ohio, and that water will get here eventually. I saw something gross. I saw real quick a number of like shit libs being like almost implying that those people had it coming or they didn't care because those people in that area voted fucking Republican or something. And I'm like,
You get that.
that is the shittiest. You are a shit human. Fuck you. Yeah, like that really pissed me off.
You,
But
you
being
always
the
have that contingent of really just atrocious liberals on every big issue, and I don't mean
yeah,
to paint every single like Democratic liberal as I guess we'll call it, when we say liberals, I'll say Democratic liberals. You get really centrist kind of DNC faithful, just pushed they're not far left, they're very Democrat. That
right,
very Democrat kind of Brooklyn dad kind of
yeah,
Twitter DNC kind of people, and they'll do this for any of these major events because they'll be like, well, you voted for less federal aid for this, or you voted for less, the people that want less regulation, and it invariably is like overall true. It's the overall trend is kind of right. So then of course they had it coming, and then what do you want the federal government to give you aid that your politicians voted against? And I mean, of course, you'll get pushback from all sorts of people because it's atrocious. But there's atrocious liberals on like hurricanes, or if there's tornadoes because they hit the Midwest, and hurricanes will hit like Florida or some other red states. And you'll really get a lot of atrocious stuff going around these really not hardcore left wing circles, but just uh, vociferously like extremist centrist Democrats circles on Ukraine, where they are sharing memes on Twitter that are just like they've got to be some of the most like racist and over the top anti-Russian propaganda by, I guess, Ukrainian propagandists. I can only imagine people that are spreading that they're coming up with these memes are in either like they're Ukrainian propagandists. They might be in with Ukrainian intelligence, or they just might be, propagandists of a freelance variety. And they'll just come up with some of the worst possible things about Russians that are just either very racist or something adjacent to it. And and you just got to wonder, that really bleeds into like mainstream, well within the Overton window politics, and it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, it just kind of shows their true colors, right? Let me run
But there
something
is
by.
Well,
I
and
was
these
going
are
to
the
say,
same. Sorry, these are the
go
same
ahead.
people who like went after, oh, if you're unvaxxed, you deserve to die. These are the same people that, went around talking about how, I mean, I could go on 100. I just don't want to talk about it anymore, but yeah, they're the
Well,
same
there's a
people.
distinction.
They're
Like
horrible
I'm trying to
humans.
draw. I'm trying to draw a distinction. There's a distinction between being far left and far right, and being like very Republican and very Democrat and very partisan politically, and they don't match up at all. But often, when you're dealing with like within the Overton window politics, what passes for being far left or being far right, it's just being very, very vocally pro-Democrat and anti-Republican, or vice versa, and that's so far from what not only like we believe, but anybody who's actually ideological as opposed to partisan actually think those things really are. And it's just really silly because invariably those people spout what amounts to a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, I do see the one good thing is I do see like when I see posts like that, like oh fucking East Palace, how do they say it there? Palestine.
Palestine, which is actually closer to how Palestine is pronounced, really.
Okay. Um, when I see posts like that about they had it coming in East Palestine because they voted for fucking Trump or whatever the thing, gross stuff like that. You'll see like actual leftists go eviscerate them. Like how can you like how can you be so cruel to like working class people or whatever the thing that are suffering right now?
I was
Um,
hoping that was the case. Yeah.
on the plus side, I have seen a lot of pushback against that because
Well, yeah,
it's fucking
leftists really
gross.
jumped on this issue pretty hard. I mean, it's a very much of like a working class, also a labor rights issue, also
Environmentalist.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
environmentalism and labor rights and regulation in the sense of like, corporations not being able to just get immunity for absolutely wrecking an environment and wrecking entire communities, which is, basically government sanctioned immunity from huge amounts of liability. So I guess I've only gotten into a little bit of the Chapo podcast on it, so there's a lot more for me to listen to, and I'm really kind of holding off until I hear all the podcasts that I have queued up on it. But what was like, what were they kind of saying? It's kind of escapes me right now. But yeah,
Let me
once
run
I hear
something
that,
by.
I'd love to kind of regroup on that once I learn more for sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
at the very least, we can assume that whoever's responsible for this is utterly careless about humanity. I mean, that's the very least that we can assume. Um, to not have these kinds of things in place. I also know that without being one of those people that's like a conspiracy theorist, that like Obama and like his ilk have had like hard-ons against the fucking Amish for decades, and there's a huge concentration of those kinds of people over there, and they are always defiant as much as they can be without going to a cage, and they really really hate that and resent that.
Yeah. So okay, a few of the things. As far as the basic partisan story, it's not that really important to us. But as far as like the regulation, some of the regulations were not put in place under the Bungler administration. Some of the regulations were not put in place under the Trump administration, and then we're well into the Biden administration. So I don't no point in doing that kind of shit flinging. But of course, you always see that. Just as a personal note, where I live in the part of town that's actually bordered by two. I mean, they eventually form into one, but basically two very heavily used railways that, just because of the nature of where I live and what goes on in this town, it's a port. There's port terminals and stuff. There are two railways that bisect right through the town. And I mean, they go pretty slow. I'm pretty sure they're very safe. They do have to like block a lot of traffic a lot of the time, but there are underpasses and stuff for that reason. But like, trains are a very important part of life here. I live basically like a city block or maybe a city block and a half worth. Like a traditional big city block, from tracks, not only like very, very busy train tracks, but they're Norfolk Southern tracks, of course, because that's where I live. The same rail company the same rail company that's involved with this particularly. And on that note, well, I'll say this: they don't really do a lot of. There's not a lot of tanker cars. There's not a lot of hazardous material. I know for a fact, 'cause I know what they're carrying in many cases. That was one terminal specifically. They're carrying tons and tons and tons of coal. A lot of coal moves through this area, so coal's not going to really be that big of a deal in rail cars, at least. Certainly not on the level of like vinyl chloride. But I guess, the part of the podcast I listened to recently, I mean, did point out, just if you want to look at the economics of it and everything, that okay, so you have this industry, it's rail. You can't just build another railway to compete with the railway. You can't just like take your business away from this railway, like not
Right.
even as consumers, but as shippers and as people that are getting stuff shipped to them in large amounts, like warehouses and distribution and whatever large businesses. Not even on the consumer level, but even those people, there's really no other choices when it comes to it. This is like major infrastructure, and rail is an important way to move these kind of materials. And in some cases, I'm sure rail is I know rail is the only way to move like thousands of tons of coal or hundreds of tons of like highly, dangerous or highly poisonous or flammable materials like this, and various other things. Like there's not like multiple different rail lines going through the country with multiple different railways. I mean, there's more than one, but it's certainly not something that you can have like vibrant competition. There is some level of like natural monopoly or something along the lines of that when it comes to rail. And there's not like great alternatives to rail for a lot of the things that are shipped on rail. But I guess it's something that you kind of have to. So it does have to be kind of have a close relationship with government and the regulators, and you cannot rely on the same market mechanisms in the same way when dealing with these rail companies. You can certainly not shield them and hold them immune, and that's what I think people are holding their breath for. But just regular even the non-radical, but just the pure pro-market thing of like, well, just take your business away from them, sue them out of existence, hold them accountable, don't give them immunity. It doesn't really quite work when it comes to rail. So
Right.
it's kind of rough. These things don't happen often, but they do happen. I mean, that whole town in Quebec was not within the past decade, I think, or maybe it could be a little bit longer than that, was like completely blown up and destroyed by a rail accident. And these things, as much as they put in place, these things do happen. But of course, once the finger pointing starts, you've really got to, at some point, certain libertarians have put forth ideas based on property rights that are very, very, very strict. And it would say that, basically no industry and no pollution could exist if you were to take things completely super literally. And obviously there has to be a reasonable compromise when it comes to that, and like particulate matter in the atmosphere and different kind of things. But when it comes to, looking at what these companies, how they operate, how they're natural monopolies, how they have like tremendous annual revenues and tremendous profits and dividends for shareholders, I think everybody and anybody is going to look at this and say, okay, are these people going to be shielded from, real paying for real compensation and even punitive damages and stuff, or are they going to be held immune because they're crucial industries and there's really no like alternatives to some of these companies?
Right.
Hey, so I got something to run by you guys about this. And me and residents have been talking about this for the past couple of days. So, like, at the same time that the Ohio thing, I got to bring you guys like several bits of information all at once here. So,
Shoot.
at the same time, like within the past couple of weeks around the Ohio thing, there's been a number of like crazy accidents, like more train derailments with chemicals, also like bunch of manufacturing facilities blowing up. Fucking Y12 near me, Y12, which is like that's where the Manhattan Project most of it happened. That's a nuclear like research facility here. Like it's like 45 minutes. They had a uranium fire. um, that's terrifying. And then so like there's been all this crazy stuff recently. And then so from what I understand, there's like 1,700 train derailments every year, which is like 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
I've seen up to upwards of a 2,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like this happens all the time, right? So like a resident and I were talking the other day. It's like, is there a bunch of crazy shit happening? Like, is this a coordinated attack, or is it like this just happens all the time? But for some reason, all of this stuff is being brought to our attention for some reason. Do you see what I mean?
Well,
Like,
that's
go ahead.
exactly what I was going to say is that, yeah, I'm pretty sure those things all happen all the time. Now, yeah, it's a roll of the dice. I guess this is like a super bad chemical, and it's just a roll of
Sure.
the dice. This is the train happened to derail catastrophically and happened to have these chemicals on it. But yeah, I've definitely heard, we've all heard apparently those figures like, if there's thousands of train derailments, most of which are like super minor, I'm sure like they just pop half the time, more than half the time they just pop them back on the rails. I don't know how that works, but apparently they have procedures for that. But all these other I know I kept starting like there was a little bit of a lag, but starting as soon as this stuff got like traction in the what media spaces, this got traction, you started seeing like this truck overturn is this huge fire and this plant exploded and this there was the nuclear accident that I didn't read much about, but I saw at least like a tweet about it in Oak Ridge. And like, yeah, I would assume these things happen all the time, but it was the same story with the food processing plants that kept burning down. Like, does this happen all the time? It might. I mean, some of this stuff like grain explodes and catches fire a lot, but maybe I have no idea who to trust on putting this into perspective. Do food processing plants and warehouses burn down all the time and we're just hearing about it because there's like conspiracy theories about it, or are they really, is the number up? And you'll hear like conflicting stories from different people, and I don't know who to trust. I don't want to just trust establishment sources, but like, a lot of people will hear things and panic, and it turns out to be nothing too. So it's really hard to get the straight story when you just don't have, when you are not an expert on food processing plants, and I'm not an expert on like trains, and I'm not an expert on balloons, and I'm not an expert on any of these things. And then all of a sudden you don't know what the straight story is on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I my brain immediately goes to conspiratorial, but I'm actually conspiratorial in both ways. Like after the Ohio
There's multiple
train,
different ways you can do that though.
right? That's what I'm saying. Like after the train derailment, there was a bunch of other like catastrophic events all around the country, and part of me is like, is this a fucking coordinated attack? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Or is it
either
a
by
distraction?
Or is this misdirection? Exactly right. Are they putting all this shit in the news all of a sudden when this is the kind of thing that happens all the time because they want to pass some kind of legislation or whatever the thing, right? Like whenever they want to.
Balloons. The balloon was the Chinese balloon story, which I guess it was apparently from China. There's a good question, like who said this thing's from China in the first place? But eventually, everybody just settled that it was from China. I don't know who's qualified to know that, except people that can choose whether or not to disclose. But apparently, we all agree that it was Chinese, and apparently, the Chinese have made comments on it. According to what I read on Twitter, which I'm not looking.
No. They never said it was theirs. They said what America did was an aggressive posture. So they never actually came out and said that this is our balloon. They just said that what America did in response to the balloon was very aggressive.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, then like
Take that
every
for what it's
day, you
worth.
start hearing that the Air Force is suddenly shooting down these shapes just all over the place. They shoot in a triangle, and they shoot down a sphere, and they shot down a cylinder, and I have no idea what to make of that. And everybody's now an expert on balloons and UFOs, which these by definition are. And I have
Right.
no idea what that means. Like we shot down a cylinder. Why is this a story? Is this all? Why are we suddenly hearing about this after the confirmed balloon thing? Do cylinders get shot down all the time? Well, there's no way I'm going to know that. I am not a high-ranking person with NORAD or the Air Force or working in air defense. I have no contacts at the Pentagon. There's no way for me to know that for sure.
And you
I'm
can't
not even
believe
sure
any
we
of
need
these
to have a
people.
discourse about it. Well, of course not. I mean, it's just it's well above my pay grade. I'm not even on in the structure, and there's no reason I would have any reliable information, nor anyone else that I'm talking to. So why are we even speculating and going back and forth about something that we have no reason to know anything about?
Well, so like, all right, so if they wanted to like make another push for gun control, the like 6 months previous to that or whatever, you would just hear about shootings every fucking day in the news, right?
Yeah,
So
in
I'm
an election year.
in an election year, yeah, you just hear about it every day. When it's like the shootings haven't gone up, you're just hear about it and they're just reporting about it in the news more, right? So I'm starting to wonder if like all of these catastrophes are kind of the same thing. Like these things happen all the time. Maybe not to the extent that happened in Ohio. That was, but trains derail all the time. Factories blow up or catch fire all the time. Whatever. Where they're just reporting on it more now because they want to do whatever the thing, pass new
Maybe
regulation, whatever it
when
is.
the news cycle gets whenever the news cycle gets slow or starts to dwell on one topic too long, especially maybe an uncomfortable topic it's like systemic and can't actually be solved, or there's just not a willingness to solve it, like inflation or some kind of Ukraine that's going to be a long-term protracted thing and so on. Or the news cycle is just maybe they want to bombard us with discourse at all times, just discourse, news story, discourse, news story, discourse, news story. It's like a brave new world of constant political discourse and debate, and that's how they control us, is through just constant politics, constant political bickering over any imaginable topic.
Right. Like how much of this is a distraction and how much of this is is it a psyop or
See, not even a distraction against, because a distraction, you look for what is a distraction for, but maybe it's not a distraction for anything in particular. It's just there has to always constantly be discourse and political debate going on among people who are wildly unqualified to like know anything about
oh,
what the thing is,
100%.
and
There's
aren't
always
even connected to what the politicians are going to do. And it's just like they just want there to be constant debate and discourse about stuff at all
yeah,
times. And if
sowing
the news story
division
gets too slow, then they just need something else to be the
to
current thing.
ramp up division and argumentation between people for sure, for sure. So this is like
And
this
there's no
stuff.
policy. Wait, there's no policy. There's no like actual democratic, small d, democratic policy debate that we had on balloons or spheres in the sky. You know what I mean? It's utterly pointless.
No, and the thing is, like, I don't usually throw myself into this shit, but like sometimes when I'm on Twitter, just trying to talk to people and be friendly and, share recipes and all the bullshit that I do that most people aren't into, talking about health and food and growing stuff. But you can't help but get drawn into it. And then you kind of start digging into it on your own. And I know, Penguin, you've done probably more research than the three of us combined. And I can't wait to hear what you've decided to your summary after all that. But I constantly find myself frustrated with being like sort of inadvertently drawn into news stories because none of this adds to my life. It just frustrates and takes away for me. And so for me, it's like, is it a distraction? I don't know. But yeah, the point of people sitting around speculating that aren't even experts is bullshit. The point of anybody sitting, I mean, they have panelists on the news. Like, why are you guys talking about this until you have the straight facts? News isn't even news anymore because nobody has the straight facts. And news is now just sitting around and bullshitting and, coming up with making up, like creating drama and making up political discussions that aren't even political, like you said. And it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to plan my garden for, to start, and I'm trying to like keep building my business and like helping other people, start anarchy in their lives, in their backyards. And like, I'm busy. Like this stuff is distracting, but it's also concerning. Like, it's just adding to my wish list of shit I need to prepare for in my life as a sort of prepper person,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we are certainly been looking into how do you what we need to do to prepare our water in case that shit from Ohio heads this way. And man, I'm actually a little concerned about that. That doesn't.
I don't think you're in the watershed.
I was just going to say, do you carry from streams or something, or?
No. I mean, but I am not far from there at all. The rivers near there do eventually flow into the Tennessee River, which goes near me.
And do you irrigate from that source at all?
No, but so most of the it's not so much even the water. Most of the shit that they burned off, the vinyl chloride turns into, you'd have to ask Resident, she knows better than I would about the chemical names, but it turns into another chemical in the sky and then rains back down on you. It's some sort of,
I've heard different chemicals because
it's some sort of chlorine. It's an acid. So
yeah, I've heard different ones, and so I don't know if it's an acid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a chemistry degree, and I haven't taken chemistry since.
Yeah,
a lot of people have been saying different chemical names, and they're clearly don't know what they're talking about. So, yeah, I'm sure she probably has a way better handle on it than like 99% of people that you could find out.
Yeah, tell her to get her lab coat on and help us out here.
Yeah, she's been doing some research on it about what we have to do. So no, we're not drinking out of that water, but we're probably more concerned about potential rain clouds coming from that direction, or whatever, like that, traveling through the air.
Yeah, and it can affect wildlife too, and like your gardening and your soil and all kinds of stuff. Because wildlife that's affected by it can drag it to your property as well, just from traveling and swimming and whatever else they do to get closer to you.
Yep. Now it's in your food, it's in your water. Like we irrigate our crops here with rainwater, so that's concerning. So I'm probably more worried about it than I should be, but we feel better just kind of being prepared for that possibility, so
I don't think that's unreasonable, because there were some interviews people were doing that I'm just now catching up on, where they were asking just regular people in the cities, like what were your original thoughts, and how did this affect you, and what did you sense, and what did you see? And people were like, it smelled like a mix of super glue and something sweet. And like, I don't see why people would make that up. And if it smells like that in the air over there, like, that doesn't mean that, just because you're a few miles away, you're not affected. It is a concern.
Yeah. So initially you get the story that there's nothing to be concerned about. And I think that's really what the problem was. You got a lot of stories that there's nothing to be concerned about. And I don't think they were accurate, and they were coming from, I heard some of it was coming from the government, but I think some of it might've been coming from, sources connected with the company itself, which is always kind of shady. And then people were actually noticing like discolored water on the ground, and the rain, and then animal, either livestock or wildlife dying, and you could have crop problems and plant related problems as well, of course. But I think you're going to get a certain amount of effects that come from actually like the exposure in the immediate area of the actual chemicals, like that were burned and stuff. And then downstream, I don't know if you just get like pH issues, but that could like obviously have tremendous problems if you do agriculture, or you're connected with that, or your community does agriculture and things. But hopefully it's not some kind of thing to straight up poison you. But if you're in the immediate area, I don't know. It's all bets are off. I have no idea.
So I'm 500 miles from East Palestine. So which sounds like a lot, but they've been finding dead fish and like weird chemical oil slicks like a couple 100 miles away already. Um, so I mean, by the time it gets to us, yeah, it'll probably be so diluted that it won't be like a at least won't be an immediate problem. But who knows how long that stuff like stays around, and you bioaccumulate things like that in your body, even if you're only drinking like very small amounts. So I don't know. And I got young kids too. I don't want them drinking or eating produce that's got vinyl chloride. Why is it echoing? Are you guys getting that echo? Oh, never mind. That's got produce that's got small particles of vinyl chloride or whatever the thing. I don't know, but probably nothing to be worried about.
I've got a mute button on my Yeti, so you might not see that I'm muted, but I do mute on because I can just reach with my hand and touch the button. So I've been just hitting that every time I'm not talking, so probably wasn't me, hopefully.
Did you hear that echo though?
I did hear a little squeak, like you got too close to a speaker or something.
Huh. So hey, back to the balloons. You know what, guys know what open skies treaty is? This is why I think that whole situation's a fucking psyop or something. So the Open Skies Treaty was signed, I want to say it was Eisenhower, with the Soviets, which basically said, and I think the Chinese signed on to this too, I'm not sure, which basically said anybody can fly whatever over any kind of surveillance stuff over satellites and balloons or whatever over our country, and we can do the same to you at any time, and it's not considered aggressive or an act of war or anything. It's totally fine. Because at the time, it would be impossible to try to police that. And America wanted to fly satellites over Russia anyway to see what they were doing. And they did the same and vice versa. That's been what do you call it? The paradigm since then. So the idea that China is flying balloons over us and we're somehow worried about that is complete bullshit because they would just fly satellites over the US and it's all like considered fine under these treaties. So I don't understand. There's something more to it that we're not hearing, and uh, or they're just blaming it on China for some more saber rattling or whatever, But um, the idea that the United States actually got worked up over balloons doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't fit in terms of like the treaties we've signed and the paradigm we've had since post World War II. So I don't understand what this is.
Funny.
Wasn't there like, maybe I'm mixing up my history years, but like, wasn't there concern about like Russian spy balloons or some shit around that time?
During when this treaty was signed, it wasn't the balloons so much as everybody was starting to put up satellites.
Yeah. Okay. Because sometimes when I hear satellites, I think of Russia because of, yeah.
Yeah, so that and that's why all the military bases got moved underground also around that same time because they knew that the Russians were going to be flying satellites over here, so they just put all the bases underground.
Yeah, extremely powerful satellites have been like as far as the sensors, optical, and different kind of stuff. Extremely powerful satellites have been around forever, dude. They've had these things since like the 60s and 70s. So,
for sure. I remember people freaking out about Sputnik back in the day.
Well, yeah. I mean, people had good imaginations, but it's not too long after that because they were able to, when they started signing the strategic arms limitations treaty, and that's actually the name of a certain treaty. But I mean in general, lowercase, those kind of treaties, those are all like treaties that are partially verified by satellites. And the Russians had them. I guess the whole, a lot of these things come down to the fact is, or the Soviets at the time would have them, and a lot of these things comes down to the fact that that's just one other country, and then obviously like Europe and Japan can do stuff, but they're not really a big deal, and they're kind of on American side. But when like the Chinese, every time the Chinese get something that was traditionally part of like the Cold War, tensions or like new type of weapons. Now we're in the age where like there's new weapons being invented and stuff like that. But every time the Chinese move into some kind of space, then it becomes a whole other concern because now there's another country that's not within the kind of liberal liberal world order, the liberal world order in American NATO orbit. And so people always freak out about that.
China.
Oh, get this. Okay, so I'm reading on it. The United States withdrew from the treaty in 2020.
Ah.
So we're not under that open skies treaty anymore. So then Russia announced its intention
Space Force,
to leave.
remember?
Yep, that was right around Space Force. So what the fuck is going on?
I have no idea.
I don't really like pay attention to space stuff, to be honest with you. I've never been interested in space, or maybe when I was a kid, but I just don't do space. It's just so far from being my concern. It's so far above my pay grade to be concerned about what happens in space. Even when you're talking about like just the upper atmosphere, like what do I care?
Right. But you know what's weird is like I don't care that much about space either, but I was admittedly a little fascinated when SpaceX came in and like, was like, yeah, look at us, motherfucking NASA, fuck you. Like that was kind of intriguing for me. But like at the same time, I was kind of like, okay, so now what? You know what I mean? And of course you have the biggest subsidy whore ever in charge of that shit,
Yeah, I mean, this is also like time for a leap in technology because all that space race stuff was invented in like the 60s, basically. I mean, I guess the groundwork being laid for that in the 50s. So you really didn't. Yeah, I guess you've seen some development in the 70s, and I think by the 80s you really weren't seeing huge leaps in technology. Like actually, I think they do come up with a lot of good like R&D off of that stuff. But as far as rockets and reusables, but orbiters and space stations and stuff.
Yeah, I was mostly referring to like just in the last few years about SpaceX, the company.
I just hardly, yeah, but they're actually making like reusable rockets and rockets that land and rockets that cost like a tenth of government rockets, which
right.
are
And they're like
at least
their
at least they were
leaps and bounds ahead of what NASA was trying to do, and NASA
so at
was
least
like,
from
fuck off.
status,
Really.
yeah, but at least from status logic, a whole bunch of R&D. So yeah, a whole bunch of R&D. There was like obviously the national prestige aspect, and then like they were developing tech for ballistic missiles and other types of deals and putting spy satellites in space and repairing satellites and stuff.
Right.
But then when that kind of was leveled off, I used to, what came of that? Like, when are we going to have spaceships that can take off and land and stuff? And SpaceX is having rockets that are like booster rockets that are taking payloads up and then falling off and landing back on their
precisely on
rear
their
end
marks. Yeah,
which is crazy. I mean, that's not something
to land on. That's insane.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to get worked up about space at the same time.
I'm not worked up. I'm fascinated. It doesn't mean I'm a fanboy. You know what I mean? It's still interesting to me. Whether or not I like it, I don't know. Sometimes if there's a launch, I might just tune in if I happen to be around, a live stream accessible area.
They launched some of those from around here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just something that's interesting for me to watch. I'm not like putting up posters of Elon Musk and shit in my house or anything. But I did come in here with a legit question before even like that's a main reason I came into the show. So when you guys have a chance to start that, let me know.
Want to do it?
I'm really into space, but not like I don't care about like space exploration so much as like just kind of learning like nerdy shit about it.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been paying too much attention to the balloon thing either. I've just been getting it like sort of peripherally, and
for memes like everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a fun thing to all kind of talk about together.
Anyway, I don't believe I'm even if I wanted to look into it, I'm not going to get like the actual facts You know what I mean? Because I don't
It's a
believe
fun
what
thing
they're saying.
for millions of people to talk about together. The balloon. It's just kind of fun. If you just
Yeah.
look at it from a fun aspect, we all are speculating about something we have no idea about. We're all making jokes about the balloon and talking about, taking a rifle and shooting it down and send up another balloon and crash into it and everything. It's just it was a fun thing, I guess, to kind of joke around on social media for a few
Yeah,
days.
Spending
if
four
novelty.
hundred thousand
I could
dollars
care
on a
less.
missile to shoot down a fucking $40 balloon or whatever. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
11 miles up. I have no idea how. I didn't even know if they were going to be able to get a plane that high. I don't have no idea. Seems pretty high for planes.
Yeah, honestly, between the balloon and the UFO shit and the train stuff, I've literally only paid attention to the train stuff on a serious, like with a serious level of interest. Because I feel like the rest of it is just like, but it was like clogging up my feed when I was looking for actual people to take act. Like I'm just interested in direct action as much as I can be. And I was just like, okay, what can we do with this Ohio shit? Like, what can we learn from this most of all? And what does other people need to do in their area that have, railroads and, facilities that could have the same kind of accident happen.
Well, yeah, like I said, I have a bunch of railroads here. You do. I mean, I think all of us live in places where there are railroads, which tends to be most places with any sort of industry or like port facilities or something would also be a major one, which we have a lot here. So of course you see, railroads connected to that. I think the other railroads a little closer to where I grew up, they will have some tankers mixed in. Not a lot, but I'm sure there could be hazardous. I don't know. I don't know if they're actually going to put those on ships or not. That's all. Everything's bound for ships or coming from ships. That's one thing I do know, based on where I'm located. Um,
What
but
was
I
your
guess when it comes to potential catastrophic disasters, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say where I'm particularly at is um, you walk a few blocks this way and you walk a few blocks that way, and you've got poor folks, and then you've got kind of the gentrified area, and then you've got the older area where
Same.
younger people and younger families are moving in and improving their lots with landscaping and improving things like they're sending their kids to the better school across to the other part of town. And it's a very mixed urban. I'm
Ditto.
literally a mile from a capital city, and it's a concern for me because it's one of those places where if you did the same film in our neighborhood, you wouldn't know that it was in Ohio. You know what I mean? That's just what it feels like here. So
I'm surrounded by a bajillion bases. I could literally list like 20 agencies that have like bases here. But most importantly, where I live, like a good chunk of a sizable amount of the Navy is here. And I'm talking about their real firepower, carriers, mostly carriers and all the stuff that goes along with carriers. And they build them here as well. Not only are they based here, I'm talking about multiple
you have the
nuclear
industry.
carriers.
Yeah, you have
So
industry.
it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious where I live if you know anything about the U.S. Navy, and it's very close. So all I have to worry about is that I don't expect it to happen, but in a nuclear exchange, it'll be short and sweet. It'll be multiple warheads, and I won't have to worry about having to unless I'm like in the outskirts. I won't have to worry about trying to survive the fallout or whatever thing. I think it'll all just
It'll be
kinda-
pretty
I'll-
instant.
incineration. Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a quick and painless way to go, and that'd probably
Or it could be like super painful for like a day and then I die. I don't know.
so.
You'll probably be vaporized instantly, honestly. But yeah,
I mean, you could ask for a lot worse ways to go, but honestly,
there's worse ways than that.
and where I live, we have bases too. So like, but they're army bases. So it's like there's one a couple miles from here, and we got Black Hawks, Chinooks, whatever you call them, flying overhead like almost all weekend in the summer.
Blackhawks here. See this MH-53, whatever that is. Blackhawks, FA-18s, F-22s are based not far from here. Oh, we've got everything. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Yeah, we just have like the big freaking helicopters that are like the size of a school bus.
When I grew up flying over the neighborhood, Blackhawks and I forgot what the other ones are called, CH-53s and MH-53s and SH-53s. But
Penguin
where I
knows his
grew up
shit.
was
What's that?
right under the.
Penguin knows his shit, I guess. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up around this. Yeah, dude, I live. So where I lived, where I grew up, and like where we'd be commuting to school and everything, is right under the landing, like so we have like all the military airlift. There's a military airlift as well as a naval base. There's also the military airlift command is here. So all the C-141s and the C-5s and like all the passenger planes, all the ones that are like contracted by the government. There's like airlines that just ferry government like soldiers and military personnel overseas back and forth in cargo, and all those basically use the airport where my neighborhood I grew up in is like the flight path. So they come in so low you can read the letterings on them. It's pretty crazy. I guess you learn to tune out the sound and the rumbling. So now actually I deal with the same thing, but it's trains.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned trains and then also all those aircrafts because I'm on a flight path. So even if there wasn't all the Black Hawks and whatever, I'd still have airplanes going literally over me. It seems like every couple hours there's like a big plane coming over. And then the neighborhood's called Railroad Island. You can look it up. It's in St. Paul. And it's, like I said, it's shaped like a sort of like, not a triangle, but like, the anarchy flag, how it's like the top half is gray and it's like at an angle. That's the shape of the neighborhood, funnily enough. And it's surrounded on all three sides by railroads.
Hey, so Resonance is listening to us live from
Sweet.
downstairs.
Hi.
There.
Hi, Resonance. And so she was commenting on the YouTube channel while we were talking about the chemicals. So she said it's phosgene and HClG. The HClG combines with water and becomes HClAQ, so it's acid rain. The boiling point of vinyl chloride gas is like 7 degrees Fahrenheit. After the transport container was punctured and the liquid escaped to STP, it vaporized. So it's all combines with water and it's all up in the air. It's not so much the stuff in the water that's also dangerous, but now it's in your rain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which could affect like
birds.
I mean, yeah, I mean for miles and I mean thousands of miles even, because once it gets up into the atmosphere, that can go everywhere, I don't know. So it's just
I think it'll go where the winds take it. So
yeah,
and that's what I mean.
Wind patterns, yeah.
And I don't know much about air particle dissipation rates and things like that either. So
right.
Jet stream, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
All the maps I saw had it not going. I don't know how this works because I know the jet stream goes west to east, but all the maps I saw had, I think it was based on watershed and kind of the waterborne effects, which might actually, honestly, might not be the worst thing if it's just acid rain and something like that. But the watershed stuff had it going through to the Mississippi through all the different like tributaries and stuff and getting in the groundwater and stuff. I didn't see anything about it going east. Yeah, that's more likely to come to you. The air should take it to the east, but I didn't see anything about it heading far east. Like not much farther than like the western part of New York State. So apparently, maybe it dissipates in the atmosphere or something, but apparently it's more the watershed is more the concern.
Right. All right. Well, enough about that. BJ? What was your you said you had a question?
Sorry, I was muted and I was in another tab. Yeah, so I was interested in joining the Q&A just with like a question in mind before I even got in here. And I was wondering, it's kind of like that time of year, it's tax season. Much as I fucking hate taxes, I'm like, I want to reach out to my fellow agorists and ask you guys, or Agoras, what do you guys do when it concerns taxes? Like, what are your either inclinations, opinions, habits? What are you trying to do? What are you avoiding? What are you trying not to do? What would you rather do? just in general, I feel like there's so much stuff that I can do and not do, but I'm overall just trying to avoid going into a cage and also trying to not go broke.
So this is why another reason that I suggest as many people as possible become self-employed, because there's so many other things that you can use as deductions being self-employed that you can't use as a wage laborer. Um, so my goal is always to pay as little a little in taxes as I possibly can. So if you're smart, you can, at least on paper, show what looks like a loss or very close to it, so you pay very little. Um, Mainly, you do this through, just save every one of your deductions and whatnot, and rada rada, some other things I can't say on here, otherwise the IRS would be up my ass. But um, you can make it look on paper like you actually didn't really make very much income. Yeah, yada yada. I was doing a little hand waving too there when I was talking. But yeah, just, the goal is to just, like I said, as a person that's self-employed or owns a business, you'd be surprised all the stuff that you can claim, and you're just playing the game at that point, right? So you just claim as much as you possibly can, and it really lowers your taxable income. And if you can make it, make it look like your business took a loss. Even better. You can only do that for a couple of years in a row, but um, do that as much as you possibly can, even if it means like buying a bunch of new stuff at the end of the year or something.
Yeah, I did that twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how businesses work. That's how businesses operate. Yeah, I can't really give you too great advice as far as my personal experience is concerned, because it's been such a neophyte business and such a rocky start, that I just kind of report the income that I report, which is basically all the income that really comes from the business itself. Um, Even if I would have the option, just because it's so few. But this year, obviously coming up, I really have to kind of make sure. Well, I've gotten in the habit of making sure I deduct all my actual deductions and everything. But I'm coming to the point where I do need to actually kind of brush up on the tax law, and how the me and the person I operate the business with are compensated, and what kind of deductions or what kind of tax rate we're playing on that. And then employees above the table or so-called under the table and everything. And there's a lot of other kind of concerns that'll come up, and it's basically just know your tax law. Some things is going on is right now, so far the revenue's been so low that it's like, I'm reporting my revenues. I mean, regardless of what my payment situation is and what my financials are.
Girl, same.
I am reporting revenue in a way that does not make it seem like I am concealing revenue, which I have no real I don't have enough revenue, I think, to conceal. But as far as but it's also a very simple operation, and when it comes to a lot, employment law and employment and deductions and stuff like that, that's a whole nother ball game, and I do have to kind of brush up on that, and that will be my side of the business for sure, just because of my background and temperament and everything. What was I going to say? That's pretty boring. But what was I going to say?
Boring is
Hmm,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Oh, hmm, yeah. I just there's a lot of obviously legal ways to. Um, you should definitely exhaust all those. A lot of legal ways to kind of minimize your tax burden. And report. Oh, I got it. Yeah. So report income is reasonable to the kind of nature of your business, and deductions that are reasonable to the nature of your business. And then also, depending on the type of business that you have, if you're small or self-employed, there's actually statistics that are kept, and that people are very well aware of different kinds of legal structures and how often they're audited and not audited. And I don't really stand much of a chance of being audited in my current state, for a variety of reasons, but especially I'm not in the state of my business. A lot of that has to do with like the nature of being in a partnership versus and what the IRS considers a partnership, which includes like state registered LLCs and stuff. And I'm not an expert on that, so I can't really speak to that. But there's definitely structures and types of people in employment in situations where you're much more likely to be audited than not, and it probably has to do with a lot of things, including what the rate of them actually finding something worth auditing, and the difficulty and the manpower they need to expend on doing that. And don't put yourself in like a high risk category, regardless of what you're doing, because everybody's doing what they're doing to minimize their tax burden. That's just the incentive structure. But like, don't find out if you're in a high risk category, because you'd be surprised what is and isn't a high risk category for the IRS. And that, I don't know what kind of incentivizes them. Probably like manpower and the amount of dollars they can find to squeeze out of people, I guess.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people say, and this is true, that methods of avoidance are illegal, methods of evasion are not legal. And so I've always agreed with just take what you have, report it, and then seek maximum deductions. So I've always done that. My problem is they still want to take a chunk out of all of that. So I'm paying in being self-employed is a huge bracket. You guys already know that. So that's because we don't have the ability for the IRS to literally just take right off the top before we even get it, which means they can chase us harder than like a typical, person who is employed by, Corp X. And so my legal structure is sole proprietorship. And I do have a business partner, but we don't have any legal papers that declare us business partners. And basically, I'm like 1099 contracting with people. I don't want 1099s, and there are people that still give them to me. But so I just take them and I report that, and I still wind up having a huge chunk that I have to pay in. And I'll spend an hour just itemizing, and I still have to take the standard deduction. And I usually don't qualify for credits unless something special happens in my state, because I don't have kids and I don't have property.
Yeah, all that stuff happens before my personal returns. So all I know is that all the deductions that come through, it's like a pass through kind of deal. I don't know if that's the technical term. I know that is a technical term, but all my deductions and stuff get filed, and then the individual returns based off of things that are my legal structure issues, which is what I issue. And as a total novice, luckily our total revenues are so minuscule in the first few years of starting the business that it's not something that it's worth them being sticklers on. I mean, you look at these tax forms and like, if your revenues are under 10 million, then you don't have to fill out this schedule. And if they're above 10 million, then you either fill out this schedule this way, or then I'm like, well, I'm well under 10 million, so I don't have to worry too much about that. So right. hopefully I think when I deal with the government, I tend to think the worst of the interaction, and I'm usually surprised that it goes through relatively smoothly, like my recent forays at the DMV. But I just don't think I just have to worry about in the future where I put myself into some kind of middling category where I'm an easy target, and I have some benefit for the IRS trying to mess with me. Then I have to worry about that. But in the current state, I think there's a variety of things they go after, but I think you can kind of do your research and look what they are and kind of avoid being ensnared by their auditors.
Yeah, so my thing is, I don't even know if I fall under that criteria. I make, like you said, I make so little that I just don't know if I'm a target. And then what I report is basically not too far off the mark as far as what I made. But I don't want to report cash transactions for my jerky. You know what I mean? It's not what I do. It's not my home office deduction worksheet, tax code, the bracket they ask you to put what occupation code, and that changes every year. Like my occupation's the same, but they change the codes every year. So you have to look them up on a table. And then when you do your home office deduction, then I'm able to scratch a lot off of the top of what I owe. But then I have back taxes like you guys wouldn't fucking believe, because when I was filing my own taxes for the first decade of my business, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just doing TurboTax, print it out, mail it in. And then, oh yeah, sure, I'll pay you later. And I just never got around to it because I fucking hated it. And so now here I am.
I've had to just do my best learning how to do like a tax form that a business is supposed to fill out. And I think I figured it out pretty well, but I had to really rack my brain, not this year, but the year before, and actually figure out how to do that correctly. And that really just worked my neurons, but I was not working for a variety of reasons. I had the time to do it. So yeah, it was more than just TurboTax. That had nothing to do with TurboTax. I had to take the IRS form and actually, but the revenues were so low that I just like, this is no sweat. They're not gonna, what are they gonna do about this? And I got confirmation that like 1% of partnerships are audited anyway, and there's no way. And my back tax is like, I'm a human being and I'm making X amount. There's no way I can pay this tax burden. But when things change, I'm going to have to consider hiring a bookkeeper or really brushing up on tax law and accounting and stuff like that. So it's all a matter of what scale you're at and what you're looking to expand to, or how much success you find. And with the amount of success, it's is going to come a burden where I'm going to have to spend a lot of my time either money outsourcing those services or doing a hell of a lot of paperwork myself, depending on the scope of the business. And unlike someone who's a sole proprietorship, basically, who's like the single boss in charge, I have a family member I work with that doesn't want to have anything to do with that kind of stuff. So I get to look forward to doing lots and lots of paperwork and sales. No, it's great. It's great. I can't wait to just be doing accounting, HR, and sales, which I do great on sales. So.
Oh, sorry. I
can't wait to be doing.
I thought you were being.
I'm not complaining at all.
Okay.
I'm not complaining at all. I can't wait to be doing sales, logistics. What's the word? Ordering supplies and stuff. Well, no, logistics. Deliveries, storage, and deliveries. Essentially, working with vendors and billing and stuff. Accounts payable and receivable, and like driving big trucks around with lots of heavy materials. I can't wait till that's all my job, which is what I have to look forward to, because I am not a huge fan of the grunt work, to be totally honest with you.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. So like I said, my reporting is not all that inaccurate, and I am a sole proprietor, and there isn't really much. I mean, if I told you guys how much I made in a year, you'd be like, come the fuck on. I don't believe you. You know what I mean? Because it's
same.
It's like, it's nearly just above poverty line. And so, but that's because I keep my overhead costs really fucking low for my business. I mean, anybody who does a tech job, once you've purchased, equipment and you learn software and all that stuff, your overhead after the first couple of years is like almost nothing. Like, you're paying for memberships, you're paying for maybe some contractors here and there to help pitch in on a project. But other than that, you're really not paying that much. And so that's why I have to draw into my home office and say, okay, here's the square footage that's devoted to my home office. This is the percentage that I use for just home office and not for personal use. Here's all the stuff they let me take off the top, credit wise, for those kinds of things. And like I say, I wind up still getting the standard deduction, which is fine because it's always like hundreds of dollars more than what I've itemized. Well, my problem is those back taxes. The last couple of years, I've had no problem where it's like, okay, my debt this year for IRS is not that bad. And then I never owe anything to the state. The state actually owes me a refund sometimes. And then I just say apply it to either next year's taxes or go ahead and apply it to whatever. And so, like I said, I've been clean as a whistle the last couple of years, but the back taxes stuff, I mean, it's less than 10 grand that I owe. It goes back so many years. It's not like 2 years. It's like 12 or 13 years.
I wouldn't sweat it that much.
I mean, I'm considering making.
I can't sweat it.
I'm considering making an offer and compromise and say, okay, I realize I owe this much. Can you accept me paying $200 a month until it's gone? Or you want me to go ahead and settle this for like $1,000? Or how do you want me to do this? This is I have a hardship and I can prove it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You get how that works. You settle. Don't pay a bunch of money to somebody to settle for you and then come out like breaking even. But yeah, you can totally settle with these people if you absolutely have to. But like, I can only imagine they can only try to get so much out of you when you live when you make barely enough to get by, which I have for the past couple of years, and I do consider myself like temporarily impoverished because I did make a lot of sacrifices in terms of like cash income to start this business, and I absolutely don't want to continue to be having the same level of cost as a ratio to my revenue, but as it looks now, last year was not the year my business took off. It didn't take off at all, but this year is looking really good. And as soon as I increase the complexity of the business, then it becomes more of a concern for me. But when it comes to back taxes, if your own personal income is low enough, I just can't imagine them really pressing you too hard on that.
Yeah.
There are people with like 100K in back taxes or something like that, or like
Oh no, this is
50K,
like
and
the
they
problem.
much would rather go after those people.
My problem is my principal's not high. It's the penalties that are fucking adding up. And so like
I
I
get
might
that.
have owed $3,000 and now it's like up to almost 9. So that's just because they keep adding penalties. And then
What are they going to do? I mean,
in between 2020 and like this year, they've like literally not talked to me because they've literally pulled back. They have not been harassing people because of the pandemic.
well, you mentioned the pandemic, and they should, I would expect, and I have some evidence that they do have their hands full with all the PPP fraud, and that's so much more of an easy target, both politically and just realistically, pragmatically, for them than dealing with people that owe less than 10 grand in back taxes. That's chump change compared to all the PPP fraud out there.
Right.
All right, so
I think
we
they'll
gotta
be
wrap
stuck on
this up
PPP
soon.
fraud. Yeah, I think they'll be stuck on PPP fraud for quite a while, to be honest with you. That's good news for me.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't take out any PPP loans.
So one thing that's different about my business and Penguin's business that's different from yours, BJ, is that we've got a lot of costs associated with our business, right? Um,
Yep.
I would say on any given job, probably close to half of the gross price is probably materials.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Just
Like
to put
the
this
cost of goods sold is like way up there.
in perspective, when I was doing my atrocious accounting for the for the end of the year stuff, I was very disappointed with revenues, blah 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 blah. But one thing I noticed is that it's seasonal, and there's really good, a lot of variation between month gross, like build receipts. But if you deduct your materials costs, it's pretty much a flat line for most of the year. It's like 10 months of the year where, like, if I made 30% more, that's all basically our build receipts. That's basically all going to like jobs with increased costs, and I didn't actually make more like actual revenues. So yeah, that's just to put it in perspective. It's really tough to kind of eke out actual profits in this.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky, but in that respect.
Well, the reason I said that was if you have like way more expenses, uh, there's that much more. That's that much more deductions, and there's a lot more wiggle room for. I don't know. I don't want fudgery. I guess like so.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you like a hypothetical example. Not that I would ever do anything like this, but you do three $10,000 jobs, right? And half of okay, so 5,000 of each of those $10,000 jobs is material costs, right? But one of those, two of those jobs are 1090, going to send you a 1099. It's business to business or whatever. But the third one is a cash job.
Right.
So that means you just got $5,000 in material costs that are now a tax deduction for the other two.
Right.
You see
Another
what I mean?
one didn't happen.
Exactly right. So, over time, throughout the year, that starts to sort of add up, So like the material costs end up being a lot more and it start getting close to your net. So for us, for me as a landscaping company, it's easier on paper to take a loss, basically. You know what I mean? Like it's just because we have so many so many costs. Now
Well,
let
yeah,
me
and
tell you one more
it
trick.
wouldn't be unfeasible or unimaginable to look at that and go, oh yeah, you took a loss.
Right. And especially in the first few years of business, you're getting established, you're buying materials, you're buying equipment,
Yep.
whatever. They're going to look at it and just be like, yeah, he's just buying shit. He's not making a ton of money right now, but it's an
Exactly.
investment. So, that 10 years down the road, they might look at that differently, but whatever.
Well, I'll put it in perspective for me. My
Wait,
current business.
one more thing before I forget, real quick. If you can pay somebody and deduct it from your income, and if it's as a subcontractor, and if it's under $600, you do not have to send them a 1099. So, something that I've known a lot of people who have done is they send out checks for like $550 to people they are very close with, and then those people give them the money back, and now you've got 10 people that you've paid, on paper 500 and something dollars or whatever, and now you've got, you know 5,000 extra dollars in deductions. I've definitely known people that have done that and gotten away with it for years and years and years. And you could just write whatever on the check, or however you pay them, and just like, oh, they helped me with office work or whatever the fucking thing for a day, and it was just sort of freelance. And as long as you keep that under $600, you don't have to send them a 1099, and they don't have to claim it on their taxes. And that is a tax deduction for you. Uh, I would be careful about abusing that, maybe, but you can definitely do some fudgery there as well. So,
Yeah, the problem is that I'm on the other end of that. I'm not 1099ing people; they're 1099ing me.
right, but you could, like, okay, so say you got 5 of your friends, you could send them each a check or PayPal or whatever the thing, um, for $500. They give you the money back, and you just claim that on your taxes as freelance labor.
Right.
So you do not have to send them a 1099 because it's under $600, so they don't have to worry about claiming it claiming
Right.
it as income.
But it's
But
a
that becomes,
deductible.
but it's a deductible for you. Just saying.
Well, there's some
That's
friends that do a
definitely
lot.
tax fraud, by the way. So
Well, I was just gonna say, there's some friends in my life that do a lot of stuff for me, and they always tell me, if you ever need a favor, well, it's time for a favor.
well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it adds up. If you got 5 people doing that, and then you start claiming a bunch of other stuff, it starts to add up after a while. So
Yeah. Good thing I guess I got going for me is I get exactly, let me see, two 1099s or three, whatever. I think it's just two people sending me 1099s. Is almost all my customers are residential, which is it may be it's not so much an administrative nightmare right now as I can really kind of hodgepodge this in the most low tech ways, just because we have so few customers, and it's really pounding out, by the way, the amount of repeat business we have. And I think that's really going to carry us through for a while. But because I deal mostly with residential customers who, by the way, because they're good people who good middle class people who own their homes, the last thing they ever want to do is owe you money. And what I found is commercial customers often very comfortable. Well, for one thing, the people paying us are managing very small and condominium residential complexes and stuff, and those people companies are very happy owing you money and having it not bothering their conscience at all for quite a while. So we've kind of gotten ourselves in a good situation. But um, I'm fortunate I'm able to deal with, like, essentially on a cash or cash like basis, private customers that almost entirely pay us on time, and yeah, very forthcoming with on-time payments. And I guess that would give me plenty of wiggle room when it comes to that. It's just the numbers are so low that right, but would there be wiggle room of certainly, of course.
Yeah, and those 2 years that I declared a profit or declared a loss, those were legit losses. Those weren't like me fudging anything. The only thing I've done so far that would be considered remotely fudging is like not reporting my jerky income last year, and that's it. It was
Oh
cash.
yeah, you had that.
I gave
No, yeah,
people meat, and they gave me money in return.
yeah.
Let's see how that's any different than having a garage sale, frankly.
I
No, I certainly wouldn't claim any of that. That'd be crazy, but
No, I haven't. I won't.
good. Well, we should wrap this up
You seem
here.
like you're ready to go, so I'm ready to let you go if you want to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat some dinner. I'm kind of hungry, and I don't feel well at all. But I gotta get over this cold.
Well, thanks for putting up with this and being around to talk to us.
Well,
Oh yeah.
they say that temperature changes are really can wreck your body when it comes to head colds and stuff like that. So I certainly believe it.
Yeah,
They've certainly been up and down.
It's been a lot of up and down around here. Yeah.
I will say one thing. Silver lining. I'm getting awfully busy for February this year.
Man, my phone is ringing off the hook. I went and did estimates today in the rain. I'm looking this year's looking good for me too. Which is good because I need the fucking money. But yeah, my phone's ringing off the hook right now. I just lined up a whole bunch of work. I'm writing up contracts now, and so I'm already busy.
Get it, girl.
And yeah. And if the weather stays warm like this, I'm going to be mowing in like 2 weeks. So I've got like 2 months of work, like landscaping work lined up, and I'm going to be mowing in like 2 weeks if the weather stays.
I'm mowing now.
Nice.
You're mowing
not
already?
a lot.
Holy shit.
Not a lot, but yeah, it depends on the lawn. It just depends on the lawn. We've got different kinds of lawns over here, and there are people that have been high. It's the weeds, just if you don't know, some weeds pop up well before a lot of grass, depending on what kind of grass you got going on. But I got some lawns I need to check on because they should be due in this kind of weather, absolutely for sure. And your cool weather grass, I don't know. Do you think?
We're talking about mowing, and BJ's got 5-foot snow drifts.
Dude, I shoveled like 3 times on Wednesday and twice on Thursday, and it was like 4 inches of drift each time.
I'm already booking multiple sod jobs, which is as much as many sod jobs as I would get a year for the past couple of years, which is only 2 years I've really been in business. I'm already ready to book 2 sod jobs. I just got to write up the estimates, but I'm really excited. Yeah, I think February, one of the coldest months of the year, could be like my most productive, which I just measure by straight dollar amount, but it's not a revenue thing. It's a measure I use of productivity.
Right.
Just to kind of keep track of raw productivity without some complex formula. February might be my most productive month so far, and then March is going to blow it out of the water. And I've got side work too because I got stuff going on here. I got family around here and everything. I've got side work. I've got tons of landscaping, so I'm really looking forward. I'm really hopeful, and
good for you. Well, thanks guys for.
And if you're homesteading, if you're growing any kind of stuff, and you're not in a northerly climate like BJ is, because I know she does, but I think this won't apply to you. You're gonna find probably you're gonna probably find your plants greening up and your time ready to plant earlier, certainly than last year, and much earlier than usual.
Oh,
whether
God.
it's global warming or it's
when
just
when this thaw happens, it's gonna make up for the last 2 years of drought.
I don't think that I don't think there's going to be this chill that comes by and kills all your crops or your lawn or anything like that this year. I think we're going to have an unusually early break of the winter this year, and it's going to be great for landscaping. It's going to be great for agriculture, and so probably more to hear about that on this podcast.
We got seeds in the ground right now, and yeah, they're saying the last frost date is like way earlier this year around here for some reason.
Nice. I'm starting seeds for warm stuff in about a week, and I'm starting onions and stuff indoors pretty quickly here.
Nice. Yeah, we've got some
Very
stuff
good.
started indoors, like the warmer stuff, and then we got our cold crops like in the ground already. So they're starting. I'm stoked. I'm happy for spring, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, BJ, thanks for chilling with us. Everybody, be excellent to each other. And does anybody have anything to add, real quick, before we leave?
You can find me on Twitter at KetoBJ and at webarchist.com.
Sweet. All right, everybody, peace.
Take care. Bye-bye, guys.
Ciao.